Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we are exploring a topic that I think is deceptively simple, but really incredibly powerful, and that is tiny habits.
Yeah.
We'll be going through some really interesting research and personal anecdotes that I think really clearly demonstrate how these small, consistent actions can lead to, well, remarkable change, really long-lasting change.
Yeah, it's really about, harnessing the power of momentum.
Right.
You start small, like almost imperceptibly small, and then you just let those actions build upon themselves.
Yeah.
Creating this kind of snowball effect, and that can really transform your life.
I love that snowball effect.
Yeah.
So we're talking about ditching those grandiose resolutions and embracing these, the power of the incremental, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the sources that we've been digging into shares this very compelling story about a man who just felt totally stuck in a rut.
Right.
He wanted to make changes, but the thought of overhauling his entire life was just paralyzing.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have been there.
Oh, yeah.
Wanting to move mountains, but not knowing where to even begin.
Exactly. And that's kind of the beauty of this whole tiny habits approach.
Right.
This man decided to start with something so small, so seemingly insignificant, that it felt almost silly, and he committed to doing just 2 push-ups every morning.
2 push-ups.
That's it. And that's the brilliance of it.
Oh, yeah.
It was such a tiny action, almost impossible to fail.
Right.
But here's the amazing part. That tiny action became like a catalyst.
Right.
And it created this sense of consistency.
Yeah.
This feeling of accomplishment, which just sparked this desire to do more.
So he started with 2, and then, what did he gradually increase it?
Exactly. He naturally progressed to 5, and then 10, and then 20.
Oh, wow.
It created this positive feedback loop where each small win just fueled his motivation to keep going.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of that, very age-old wisdom that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah, perfect analogy.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets even more interesting.
No.
It wasn't just about the physical act of doing the push-ups.
Yeah.
It was about the shift in identity that those tiny actions created.
Oh, okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, what do you mean by that, like the shift in identity?
Well, think about it this way. He didn't just become stronger physically.
Right.
He started to see himself as the kind of person who takes action.
Right.
Who follows through on commitments, who prioritizes his health.
So those tiny push-ups weren't just a workout, they were like a statement about who he was becoming.
Exactly. And that's incredibly powerful. When you change your self-perception, your actions naturally start to align with that new identity.
This reminds me of that quote by James Clear. He says, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems."
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a core principle of this whole philosophy, It's not about setting these lofty goals. It's about building systems, habits, the daily routines that will actually get you there.
So it's more about focusing on the process, not just the outcome.
Precisely. Yeah, and recognizing that lasting change is not a sprint.
Right.
It's a marathon.
Oh, yeah.
And the best way to run a marathon is not to focus on the finish line,
Right.
but to just take one step at a time.
This is really making me rethink my entire approach to personal growth. Instead of getting overwhelmed by these, big, audacious goals, I need to think more about the tiny habits that will pave the path to get there.
Exactly. And that's where the concept of getting 1% better each day comes into play.
Right.
It might not sound like much, but the cumulative effect over time is just astounding.
Okay, so help me with the math here.
Yeah.
If I get 1% better every day for a year,
Yeah.
what kind of impact are we talking about?
Well, the math is, it's fascinating. You'll end up being 37 times better than when you started.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
Imagine applying that to any area of your life, your relationships, your finances, your creativity.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Those seemingly insignificant incremental improvements.
Right, and that's the beauty of it, It's not about striving for perfection. It's about embracing those small, consistent actions that build momentum over time.
Right.
It's about starting where you are with what you have.
Yeah.
And taking that first tiny step.
This is all starting to click for me now. So how do we actually go about implementing this?
Yeah.
What are some practical steps for creating these tiny habits that will lead to big changes?
Well, it all starts with identifying one specific area you'd like to improve.
Okay.
Don't try to tackle everything at once. Just focus on one thing.
So, if I wanted to be more mindful,
Yeah.
I wouldn't try to just overhaul my entire routine overnight.
Right.
I would pick one small habit to focus on.
Exactly. And instead of setting this like big, intimidating goal, like I'm going to meditate for 30 minutes every day.
You might just start with 1 minute.
Okay, so make it so easy that it's almost impossible to fail.
That's the magic formula.
Yeah.
Our sources suggest starting with something you can do in under 2 minutes.
So like reading 1 page of a book each night,
Yep.
doing 5 squats while you're waiting for your coffee to brew,
Yeah, love it.
writing down one thing you're grateful for before you go to sleep.
Those are all great examples. The point is to make it so simple you can't talk yourself out of it.
Right. Okay, I'm starting to really see how this could work.
Yeah.
But what happens when those tiny habits start to feel too easy?
Right.
Do you just keep doing them at that same level?
That's a great question. Remember, it's all about building momentum.
Right.
Once that tiny habit becomes ingrained,
Yeah.
you can start to gradually increase like the intensity or the duration.
So if I've been meditating for 1 minute each day,
Yeah.
maybe after a week I bump it up to 2 minutes, and so on.
Exactly. You know, it's about listening to your own rhythm and progressing at a pace that feels comfortable and sustainable for you.
This is reminding me of something you said earlier.
Yeah.
About the importance of like the identity shift.
Right.
How do these tiny habits actually contribute to changing our self-perception?
Well, each time you perform that tiny habit,
Yeah.
you're kind of reinforcing this belief about yourself.
Okay.
You're proving to yourself that you're the kind of person who follows through, who takes action, who makes healthy choices.
It's like sending a message to your subconscious,
Yeah.
rewiring your internal narrative.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And as that self-perception changes,
Right.
you become more inclined to engage in behaviors that support that new identity.
So if I consistently write down one thing I'm grateful for each day,
Yeah.
I'm not just cultivating a habit of gratitude,
Right.
but I'm also reinforcing the belief that I'm a grateful person.
Precisely. And that belief then spills over into other areas of your life. You start to notice more things to be grateful for.
Oh, wow.
You approach challenges with a more positive mindset,
That's amazing.
and you just attract more abundance into your life.
It's like a ripple effect,
Yeah.
spreading outwards from that one tiny habit.
And that's the real power of tiny habits, you know? They're
Right.
not just about achieving specific outcomes, they're about transforming who we are at our core.
This is making me realize I've been approaching personal growth all wrong.
Yeah,
Instead of focusing on these like big sweeping changes,
right.
I need to start with those small, consistent actions that will ultimately shape my identity
Yes.
and create lasting transformation.
That's a powerful insight. And remember, you know, it's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about being consistent. There will be days when you miss your tiny habit.
Yeah, of course.
And that's okay. Just get back on track the next day.
So it's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. It's about embracing the journey, knowing that each tiny step you take is moving you closer to becoming the best version of yourself.
I'm really starting to grasp the transformative potential of this approach.
Good.
It's about shifting our focus from the outcome to the process.
Yeah.
From the destination to the journey.
Exactly.
It's about embracing the power of these small, consistent actions to create lasting change.
And it's about recognizing that we all have the power to create the life we want,
Yeah.
one tiny habit at a time.
This has been so insightful.
Good, I'm glad.
As we wrap up our deep dive into tiny habits,
Yeah.
what are some key takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
I think one of the biggest ones is just the power of consistency, like you were saying.
Right.
It's not about making these huge, sweeping changes. It's about focusing on small, manageable actions that we can repeat day after day.
And and remembering that consistency doesn't mean perfection.
Exactly. There will be days you stumble,
Right.
you miss your tiny habit, and that's perfectly okay.
It's all about getting back on track,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. It's about embracing that long game, knowing that even small actions, when repeated consistently, can lead to really incredible results.
You mentioned earlier the importance of starting with just one tiny habit.
Yeah.
Any advice on how to choose that first habit?
I would just say, think about an area of your life you'd like to improve,
Right.
and then identify the smallest possible action you can take in that direction.
Okay.
Make it so easy you can't say no.
And don't be afraid to experiment, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's all about finding what works for you,
Right.
what fits into your lifestyle.
And I think it's also helpful to remember that, building new habits takes time.
Yeah.
We're not going to see results overnight.
Right.
And that's okay.
Patience is key. It's about trusting the process,
Yeah.
knowing that those small, consistent actions are creating lasting change. even if we can't see it immediately.
It's like planting a seed.
Yeah.
We need to nurture it, water it, give it time to grow.
That's such a beautiful analogy. And
Yeah.
just like a seed, those tiny habits have the potential to just blossom into something extraordinary.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into tiny habits,
Yeah.
what's one final thought you want to leave our listeners with today?
I would just encourage everyone listening to really embrace the power of those small, consistent actions.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate the transformative potential of those tiny habits,
Right.
Start today, start right now with one small step.
Yeah.
And just watch as those small steps lead you to a life beyond your wildest dreams.
That's such an inspiring message. It's such a great reminder that we all have that power
Yeah.
to create the life we want, one tiny habit at a time. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of tiny habits. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep taking those small steps that lead to those big transformations.